Realtor Tom with a quick video. This is a short one on filling out your IABS. That is the Information About Brokerage Services. I'm going to go to my files over here, and I have it saved in legal documents. Now, you fill this out before, you can pull it down from zip forms. I'll go through that here shortly. But where is my IABS? Right here. Couldn't see it. So I'll pull this up. When you talk about the IABS to your client, basically you're going to explain who you are to them. That's what this form does. It explains who I am and what my responsibilities are for you. So here's the minimum duties as required by law. You put the interest of the client above all others. Inform the client any material information about the property or transaction received by the broker. Answer the client's questions and present any offer to or counter offer from the client, and treat all parties to a real estate transaction honestly and fairly. Okay? Now, if you are the agent for the owner, meaning you are selling, these are the things that you do and you explain to them. And if you are an agent for the buyer, this is what you do and what you explain to them as well. If you are an agent for both, then go in depth and explain all of these. So, reading it real quick, the broker becomes the property owner's agent through an agreement with the owner, usually in a written listing to sell or property management agreement. An owner's agent must perform the broker's minimum duties above and must inform the owner of any material information about the property or transaction known by the agent, including information disclosed to the agent or sub-agent by the buyer or buyer's agent. Now, if you are the agent for the buyer or tenant, the broker becomes the buyer-tenant's agent by agreeing to represent the buyer, usually through a written representation agreement. A buyer's agent must perform the broker's minimum duties above and must inform the buyer of any material information about the property or transaction known by the agent, including information disclosed to the agent by the seller or seller's agent. Now here you go, as agent for both, as an intermediary. To act as an intermediary between the parties, the broker must first obtain the written agreement of each party to the transaction. When you hear written agreement, that means there's another form. Okay, so there's a notification that you are in an intermediary situation. The written agreement must state who will pay the broker and, in conspicuous bold or underlined print, set forth the broker's obligations as an intermediary. A broker who acts as an intermediary must treat all parties to the transaction impartially and fairly. May, with the parties' written consent, appoint a different license holder associated with the broker to each party, owner and buyer, to communicate with, provide opinions and advice to, and carry out the instructions of each party to the transaction. This means that somebody else from our brokerage will step in and be able to act as agent for the other person. Okay? Must not, unless specifically authorized in writing to do so by the party, disclose that the owner will accept a price less than written asking price, can't do that, that the buyer tenant will pay a price greater than the price submitted in a written offer, can't do that. Any confidential information or any other information that a party specifically instructs the broker in writing not to disclose unless required to do so by law, so can't do that. And sub-agent, don't really mess around with this at all. A license holder acts as a sub-agent when aiding a buyer in a transaction without an agreement to represent the buyer. A sub-agent can assist the buyer but does not represent the buyer and must place the interest of the owner first. To avoid disputes, all agreements between you and a broker should be in writing and clearly establish the broker's duties and responsibilities to you and your obligations under the representation agreement. Who will pay the broker for services provided to you, when payment will be made, and how the payment will be calculated. The license holder contact information. This notice is being provided for information purposes. It does not create an obligation for you to use the broker's services. Please acknowledge receipt of this notice below and retain a copy for your records. And you get their initials down here and the date. Now, if you are with Cornerstone Realty, this is how it's going to be set up here at the top. So you have Reyes Cornerstone Realty LLC, and this is the license number for that. Emails for both Cornerstone Realty LLC and Cornerstone Realty are the same. Email's the same, phone number's the same. Your designated broker is Adele Reyes. This is her license number. You'll need this information for your contracts and things like that. And her email and phone number, and then your information goes on this bottom line. Okay? So you'll fill this out in advance, and then you'll send it out to get initials when you have your first communication of real estate content. Okay, so when you're like, hey, I am going to help you buy or help you sell a property, and then there's a significant conversation about real estate there, you're going to want to notify them who you are going to be to them. So you send this, and the easy way to do that is you just have it attached to your email. So when you send an email, there is a notification. Now, before you move to a listing agreement or a buyer representation situation, you have to send them this and get their initials. Okay, so this is one of the first documents that you will send and get acknowledged.